Dino 404 Boxing and More here. Shout out to the LDBC. Hey, shout out to my boy Trey X and Marlo on Marlo's Corner. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to those guys, hey, go over there and check them out. One of the hottest channels on YouTube, especially one of the hottest channels in the boxing community. Go over there and check them out. Sub to them. You know, they got a lot of good content over there. Do a lot of great live streams. Excuse me. Hey, it's worth going over there and checking them out. Like I said, they're one of the hottest channels on YouTube. Probably my favorite channel on YouTube, bar none. All right. What I want to talk about is Anthony Joshua did an interview with Sky Sports after the Dillian White Derek Chisora fight, in which Dillian White stopped Derek Chisora in the 11th round. Of course, AJ came to the ring. I was actually going to get in the ring, but security or whoever decided that probably wasn't best and just told him to stand on the ring apron. He and Dillian White went back and forth. Joshua talked about, you know, if the Wilder fight can't happen, that, you know, he'd be willing to give Dillian White an opportunity. Of course, it's not what Dillian White wanted to hear. Dillian White wanted to hear AJ say, pretty much guarantee him the shot at Wembley on April 13th. That didn't happen. White got irate, you know, said some things to Joshua and left, you know, and so this interview that AJ was doing with Sky was kind of in response to that, where AJ said basically that, you know, he told Dilly, you know, I've knocked you out, you know, straight up. We had a fight. I beat you, you know, clearly. But if the Wilder fight can't happen, of course, you know, in AJ's language, you know, he talks like, you know, Wilder's playing games and Wilder doesn't really want the fight. He said something like, if Wilder's not serious. Because, of course, he's the only one who's serious about making the fight now. You know, forget all the other nonsense that happened over the last several years. The reason this fight hadn't happened in the last few years. Now, all of a sudden, AJ's serious about making the fight and Wilder's the holdup. So, let's just say for all intents and purposes of this video that that's actually the truth. So, you know, with AJ saying all of that, you know, he basically said that, you know, White is not option number one. He's option 2 or 3, basically, because I'm assuming that Tyson Fury could possibly be in the mix, or the Fury fight may just not be a fight that Joshua's interested in. But my take on all of this is this. You know, Joshua has had more than one, more than 2, more than 3, more than 4, more than 5 opportunities to make that fight with Wilder happen. And every time the ball was put in his court, he and Eddie Hearn found a way to mess it up, to fumble away all chances at really making that fight, going ahead and bringing the fight together and making that fight for Undisputed a reality. The fight that, you know, clearly is one of, if not the biggest fights that can be made in boxing. And I mean, that's not in the U.S., that's not in the UK. I mean, the biggest fights that can be made in boxing worldwide. This is either it or right there at it. Now, right now, we know that the fans are clamoring for a rematch because of the way the Wilder-Fury fight ended. It was a close contested fight with a lot of close rounds. Wilder knocked Fury out in the fight. Fury somehow recovered and made it to his feet before the count of 10 and finished the fight on his feet. There were a lot of close rounds in between. Wilder also dropped Fury in the ninth. There was another knockdown in the fight that was considered a slip or not necessarily ruled a knockdown. But, you know, the fight kind of had a somewhat controversial ending, just in the fact that it was, you know, any fight ends in a draw. You know, that's always a demand for a rematch. You want to have a clear-cut winner. I think when 2 fighters fight and have a draw and they never fight again, I think both fighters consider themselves lucky and they don't want to take a chance on losing to the other fighter. So I don't think a draw should ever be the only fight between 2 guys unless something happens where one guy leaves the division or leaves the sport altogether or whatever the case may be. You know, that's why I think that when a fight ends in a draw or when a fight is demanding a rematch, that rematch needs to happen immediately, because if you push it too far down the line, guys decline. They get a little more ring wear on them. Next thing you know, when the 2 guys meet, they're nowhere near the same 2 fighters that fought in the original fight. with Derek Chisora and Dillian White. That rematch took about probably 2 years or so to be made. I mean, I honestly wanted to see a rematch when the fight first happened. I felt like it was close. It was kind of controversial. I felt like Chisora won the first fight. I would have loved to have seen an immediate rematch. That didn't happen. But when we got it, we did get a good fight. But, you know what I'm saying, that now there's really no demand for a rematch because there was a clear-cut winner. Dillian White got a stoppage. You know, that said, that's not to say that they couldn't possibly have another fight down the line, and who's to say Chisora wouldn't get a knockout. And then that would be cause for a fourth fight. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. My point is that when there's a close fight that comes to a draw, which draw as a result that no one aims for when a fight's taking place. No team, no fans, no fighter, their trainer. No one wants to have a draw. I think most fighters and trainers would rather go out on their shield and be knocked out than to fight to a draw. Now that's a different story. I think in the case of like Juan Manuel Marquez Pacquiao first fight, where Marquez got knocked down like 3 times early in the fight. Of course, to have a draw in that situation, and you really fought your way back to a draw, then you could take some solace in that and say, hey man, that guy's a warrior. He fought his way back and got a draw out of that after being dominated early. But even in that case, we got 3 more fights out of those guys. So my point is, the demand for the rematch with Wilder and Fury is here. It's been a huge fight. The first fight did well. A rematch right now would do really well. I can't say that a rematch down the line wouldn't do even better from a commercial standpoint, from a ticket sales standpoint, from a pay-per-view buy rate standpoint. But that said, the fight's big right now. Who knows with Fury and his inconsistency what could happen. This is also the heavyweight division, so who's to say either guy, you know, won't suffer a loss or two if they prolong their rematch. I think they kind of need to strike while the iron's hot. But that said, you know, Wilder and AJ, the fight is still as big as it ever was, even getting bigger. And if they fight right now, you know, and regardless of who wins, I think both guys are going to have rematch clause. So you're looking at least 1 more fight. And possibly 2 more fights. And then what is Fury going to do in all that time? Is he going to balloon back up in weight? Is he going to fall off the wagon? You know, what's going to happen? Is he going to stay active and take chances, taking seriously tough fights, fighting guys like, say, Luis Ortiz? Or even, say, Jarrell Big Baby Miller may be a tough fight for Fury just from a matchup standpoint. You know, 2 very big guys in there. Not to say that I think Miller is on the Fury's level as far as pure boxing ability. But, you know, Miller's a durable guy that throws a lot of punches. And he's pretty accurate with his punching, and he's pretty consistent with his punch output from like the first round through the 12th round. So that could be a good matchup. But then you got guys, you know, you just got a lot of guys out there. You know, you got Dominic Breazeale out there who is the WBC mandatory. You got Dillian White out there. So there's a lot of fights to be made, and the heavyweight division is a dangerous division because, you know, I mean, like all of boxing, but in the heavyweight division, man, one punch truly can change a fighter forever. So for me, if I had my wish, even as much as I want to see the Fury Wilder rematch, and as much as I want Wilder to stick it to Joshua and just go ahead on about his business because of the way they jerked him around, I do want to see Undisputed, and I do want to see Undisputed with both of those guys undefeated and riding highs. So I'd like to see that. But as far as whatever Deontay Wilder decides to do, whether that's fighting Tyson Fury in a rematch, if Fury and his team come to terms and come to the side that that's what they want to do next, whether that's fighting AJ for Undisputed or whether that's fighting Dominic Breazeale to get rid of that mandatory that's kind of hanging out there as the big elephant in the room, I would support that as well. So from my standpoint as a fan, as a boxing fan, I'm a fan of Wilder. I'm actually a fan of all of these guys. I'm a fan of Tyson Fury, a fan of Luis Ortiz. I'm a fan of AJ's. I just don't like a lot of things that AJ does outside of the ring, and the way he talks, you know, when it comes to Wilder. But as far as what he does in the ring, I think he's pretty good guy, you know, pretty good fighter. Do I believe in this, all of this hype and talk that a lot of people have put up saying that, he's this great and all of this and that? I don't really believe all that, but I think he's a really good fighter. One thing AJ did say was that none of these heavyweights are on my level. I have to disagree with him until he gets in the ring with him and proves that. Yeah, I don't feel like that statement is just his opinion. Just like anything I say is my opinion. You know what I'm saying? You got to show me, AJ. If you think these guys aren't on your level, get in the ring with them and show them that they're not on your level, and show us fight fans, show the boxing world that they're not on your level. Until then, there's no point in trying to act like your head and shoulders above everyone else, because I see a lot of guys that I think are on right there together on the same level. Then there's a tier below them that's on another level, and there's a tier below them. So it's like, hey, if these guys aren't getting in the ring proving what they're saying, the stuff can't be substantiated. It's just their opinion. But whatever Wilder decides to do next, I'm going to support him, because after fighting Tyson Fury and Luis Ortiz back to back and having an injury in between that time, having to have surgery, I can't criticize the guy. You know what I'm saying? I can't criticize him if he had to fight as mandatory. I can't criticize him for a Tyson Fury rematch, and I definitely can't criticize him if he goes undisputed after AJ. And the thing I will say about everyone who is complaining about Deontay Wilder not wanting to rush to this, all of a sudden saying, okay, yeah, let's make this undisputed fight happen. When fighters come out and question his heart and say that they don't think he wants that Fury fight again, how can you not, how could you get mad at him if he wants to prove that he's better than Tyson Fury, and that there's nothing Tyson Fury showed him that he needs to be concerned about or that he needs to shy away from. So I 100% understand and support him if he wants to do that rematch. But if he wants to go for undisputed and get AJ out of there, I support that as well. But I also don't blame him for feeling like he's going to be wasting his time if he starts pursuing that fight. And here it is, December, and he's concerned that it'll be February and they'll still be talking about the fight and nothing will be solidified. So, because he's been down this road a couple times with that group, with that team, and I can't blame him for being pissed to the point that he's just like, man, I'm not gonna waste my time with these guys. I've told them what I want. If they come to the table with that, we can talk. If they're not, then I don't have time for them. So I understand. But that's all I got to say on the subject. D-Lo 404 Boxing and more. Once again, shout out to the LDBC, and I'm out. Peace.